Nope.
No.
There it is.
There we go.
Do we even need this or?
Yes.
All right, well, first of all, I guess, good afternoon, and it's good to see everyone here today. I'm Jim Tripp. I'm running for First Selectman. Only got 2 minutes, so I'm going to jump right into it. I'm running for First Selectman because the issues that I've been working on for 4 years on the board, the previous 20 years of experience I've had as a volunteer and 30 years in business have prepared me to handle a lot of the issues and hit the ground running on day one. I'm very proud. I have a family, my lovely family in town. My wife is here tonight. I've raised 2 kids through the school system. I understand the issues that we're facing in that regard. My volunteer experience jumps from as 20 years with the Brownstone Forum, 17 years as president. I served as the charter president of the Portland Lions. I've served on the Board of Education, the Board of Selectmen since May of 2017. Parks and Rec Commission, I serve as the vice chair of the Water and Sewer Subcommittee, the Sidewalk Subcommittee, and I was also vice chair of the Route 17 Building Committee before I joined the Board of Selectmen. The main issues I have been focused on relentlessly in this campaign have been how do we lower the cost of water, how do we address our aging elementary school infrastructure, how do we address getting our track replaced, working on those issues, and how are we going to continue driving economic development, and specifically the redevelopment of the riverfront here, the brownfield, including what we're going to do for long-term strategies to get the best possible return for the folks in Portland. I guess I just look at the experience that I bring to the table. I'm looking forward to serving as First Selectman. I know that the expertise, I want to make sure I hit my education too, because I think that's been an issue in this campaign. And that is, I have a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering Technology from UMass Dartmouth. I earned my Master's of Science in Management from Rensselaer Polytechnic University. I have 22 years using that experience as a leader in the volunteer community and in business.
Hey, can everybody hear me all right? Yep. All right, so thank you all, just like Jim, for coming today. It means a lot to see so many people here. My name is Ryan Curley. As I'm sure most of you know, I'm a candidate for First Selectman. I do want to start off, I know it's Jim's birthday, so I do want to start off by wishing you a happy birthday. So, one year of experience. All right, take 10 seconds off the clock, please. Give him 10 seconds. So I grew up in Portland. This is my hometown. I think both Jim and myself, we bring a lot of experience to this town. What separates me is I grew up in town. I got my Eagle Scout with Troop 2 in town. I went through Portland schools, later Xavier High School, Bryant University, where I concentrated in accounting. I originally was an accountant, so I bring that experience with me I brought that with me to the Board of Selectmen, where I served for 4 years between 2011 and 2015. I actually have 10 years of elected experience in the town of Portland, which is, and I have my master's degree in public administration. I see my fellow cohort Zoe out there. And that is 10 years of elected service to this town and a master's degree in public administration, which is the exact same amount of experience and the exact same degree that Susan Bransfield brought with her when she was first elected back in 2003. I think that I am happy to talk about my experience as town clerk. I've been town clerk for the past 6 years. We've done a lot of improvements in the clerk's office, and I think what separates me apart is the experience that I have already working in town hall. Because I can tell you, as having been a selectman and having also worked inside town hall, there's a big difference. And so I will be ready on day one to tackle the issues facing Portland. It's economic development, it's water and sewer, lowering these water rates like Jim said. I'm glad you talked about the track. I've been talking about that since May, so I'm glad it's gotten picked up. We got to get this track fixed. And anyways, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any audience questions? We'll go one at a time. People just need to stand and ask the question. You can say, I suppose, say who you are.
I'm already standing.
I have seen, watching watching a video that you had your arm around Sean Manning, saying that his values were your values. I have been on social media seeing Sean Manning state that he does wearing masks a week, and he doesn't believe in climate change, and he's passing Stop the Steal nonsense. So Ryan, I'm questioning you, are these your values also?
I'm happy to talk about my values. You know, I am fortunate, I think I'll let Sean speak for himself on those issues. I can tell you that my values I hold very dear. I do not agree with the Stop the Steal. As town clerk, I take elections very seriously. And I also take respect very seriously. And I don't know what values you're referring to in what I've said, but the only thing that I can do is I can represent myself. And I feel that I hold myself accountable. I hold myself to a very high standard. And I treat everyone with a great deal of respect. And I believe that I have a great core of values, and I also am blessed with a lot of supporters. And some of those supporters may not share all of my values. I have, you know, in this campaign, I think Jim would agree that we've been out, we've knocked on thousands of doors, we met with thousands of residents, and I've gotten support from people, and if you sat us down in a room, we might disagree on many of the issues that you just talked about. But my job as a leader is to bring everyone together at the table to move Portland forward. And that's why I'm running for First Selectman. I am running to represent everyone here, whether they vote for me or they don't vote for me. And that's what I will continue to do.
I think that this has been an issue that has come up several times in several different formats, I think, in the campaign. And I'm in full agreement, and I think that when you look at the 20 years that I've spent as a volunteer, as a leader, that's been a hallmark of it. I work in a very bipartisan way. I think Ryan would agree with that. He and I have worked on other issues very well together. I think, though, that there's a component missing when the way that in the answer, and it's something that I think is a.
This is a plot, I can tell.
All right, is that better? I'm not sure why I keep pulling out, but I think there's a component missing in the answer, and that is that it's up to a leader to bring people together and try to bring consensus. It's also up to a leader to stand up to things that are wrong. A big component, and we've seen this in the discussions with Solidarity, and the work that's being done, is that if we see things that are wrong, if we see statements that are made that are incorrect, and we're not willing to stand up to them as leaders, we're tacitly agreeing with them. We're permitting them to exist. And I think that's part of trying to solve some of the challenging issues we have. There are a lot of forces that are basically playing themselves out, and they're trying to get into this community and really mess up the dialogue, mess up the dynamic that we've had of working in a bipartisan way. We need to stand up to those, and that includes standing up to folks. I can tell you, I have seen, and I've chosen not to post them because I just don't think that is something I want to do from a campaign. I've seen the stuff that was online. Some of it was very, very, let's just say some of it is stuff that I don't think you would want to have posted at this time.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't you. You did though in your announcement talk about sharing values, and really what you were doing is, there's been a tagline that you've had throughout this campaign, which is Portland, not politics. And there are things you've done for very political reasons, which are fine. This is a political campaign. It's normal. But it's to me, it's a fair question. The bottom line is we've got to bring everything together. Sorry.
Yeah. I was addressing you and I didn't see the.
Do you want to take 10 seconds to make up for that, or?
Yeah, I mean, the whole point is to have a good discussion here, guys, so.
To me, yeah, I'll just say, to me, this race is entirely about Portland. I've been committed to the issues this entire race. My team and I have made a decision to be only positive. When you read the letters to the editor, there's no attacks coming from my people. There's no attacks coming from anyone else aside from your side. And so, unfortunately, I'm trying to elevate myself in this, okay? And I'm trying to elevate the town of Portland. At the end of the day, November 3rd, we're all gonna have to go back to being friends and working together. And honestly, I can't wait to do that because I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
Okay, can we get a Jim Tripp question? Right here.
Jim, when you become our first selectman, what are you gonna do to push us quickly into the future with our water issue in town? I understand our RFP hasn't even been signed yet. What's happening with you on that effort?
Yeah, that's something that we've been pushing on, and that the RFP has been held up in a legal review, which is frustrating. What Norm's talking about is that we know with water, and this is something that, as right out of the gate as a campaign issue, we've been focused like a laser on how we address the water costs. This is because for 4 years working on the board, we've worked on the water and sewer subcommittee. We've taken a look at a lot of the different options that we needed to look at, to do our due diligence, to understand how we have to best move forward. Right now, the water we get on a per gallon basis from MDC is about 6 times more expensive than the water we can generate from our town well. We need to get our own Portland-owned source of water, okay? It's critical that we do that. It's also critical, we have a $250,000 grant from the Department of Public Health. The work to do this can be costly. We need to work with the Department of Public Health from a permitting perspective. We need to make sure that we follow a process where we're going to have partners as we try to go forward with permitting, future grants, etc. So the goal of the town and the First Selectwoman's office has been to work and follow the process that's been laid out by the Department of Public Health to make sure that we don't take ourselves off that track. I know it was raised as an issue that the subcommittee hasn't met since February. That's simply because that's about the time we finished the work we needed to do, and as a subcommittee, and we haven't had any broad issues that have come in yet. We're not looking at rates at this point because it's not that time, and we're basically waiting for this RFP to get out the gate. On day one, I can tell you on day one when I take office, which I believe would be November 17th, we were going to have a meeting in the office, and it's going to have to do with how we move water forward, and that's going to be a focus from day one. We don't have a lot of time to do the work we need to do to get it done, which is find a source, permit it, get the infrastructure design built, and have it tied in by the end of 2025. All right, at least all the pre-work is done, and we'll be ready to move forward on day one.
Thank you, Norm, for that question. And this is something Jim and I are in a definite agreement on this issue. We need to lower our water rates for Portland's residents, for our customers. That is something that I am committed to doing. I know Jim is as well. However, it's kind of the adage, if you keep doing what you've always done, you're always going to get what you always got. And things just take too long to get done right now. We need to be moving faster, and I don't care what the reason is for not meeting since February, but I can promise you, we will be meeting more than once every 10 months when I'm First Selectman, or 9 months. And, sorry guys, and mic drop. And so honestly, it's something that, and you did have in the agenda that there was to be a March meeting that then never happened. So where Jim and I differ is I am totally in favor of the wells and looking for our own water source in Portland. I think we have to do that. Norm, to get to your point, we'd be moving a lot faster right now. We can't waste. I was on the Water and Sewer Subcommittee 8 years ago, when I was on the Board of Selectmen. And this was an issue then. Why it's taken this long, I don't understand. But we've seen it with Brainerd Place. We've seen it with many other things in town. They just take too long. And I'm telling you that I am going to be hitting the ground running, whether it's our own water source, or I'd like to just keep the options open right now because I'm not entirely positive. I know you've done the numbers. And I know your numbers pan out, but we've also seen sometimes numbers of yours go above cost, like with the new park, where, you know, we were promised a Cadillac and we got a Chevy, which is still a Chevy, but, you know, so I am dedicated to hitting the ground running, to solving this issue. Bottom line, we're gonna lower costs for residents, and I promise you that.
Okay, ladies and editorial, we need a candidate to please at least paraphrase the question from here on forward. Because not everybody in the back can hear the question, so just when the question gets asked, just prior to you, and we'll start the timer after the paraphrase of the question, so you don't lose any time for that. And then the next question is for Jim.
Does he get to respond to that?
Well, we were doing a question and then response, so now he gets questions and response. We weren't doing double for both. We did last time because Jim went over and we gave Ryan 10 seconds to wrap up. So that's how we want to proceed. So question for Jim? Right here.
It would be a question for
That was
Ryan.
the question for Jim.
Oh, I apologize. Question for Ryan. I'm sorry.
All right, so I'll deconstruct a couple of things, I guess, with that. First of all, when you attack about the park, that's an issue that you probably should do more research on, all right? That park, when it was designed, was a $6.7 million park in the estimate, on a 2015 estimate. We delivered that park in 2020 at $6 million. Costs didn't go up, they came down. The issue that we had to do is, including inflation, we had to address not only the inflation costs, but get everything that was done. The only feature that did not get built into that park that was originally planned was the rec building. Basically a small rec barn that could be used for storage or programming. What we got in addition that we didn't plan on were amenities like a recirculation system that's going to cut the cost of operating the water by recapturing it, cleaning it, and using it for irrigation. We ended up getting all of the other features that we wanted in that park. We ended up getting conduit underground so that we're not going to have to dig up pavement when we bring in additional amenities. And we were able to add things back in after the RFP, like making sure we had a covered area to sit. When it goes to water, and the commentary there, I'm very comfortable with my numbers because my numbers generally do pan out. And I'm also very comfortable with talking about this issue. You talk about how, a reference to the track earlier and how I came to it. I actually came to the track right away. What I did is not talk about it a lot because I was working on it. I've had letters or calls into the legislature to get funding and working on different funding cycles of how we could do something with it. I actually, on the 20th, proposed a funding solution, actually two, that we could do. When it goes to the, back to water, I'll say this. Your solutions have been to run pipes up 66. Your solutions have been to look at potentially contracting with water providers. And now your solutions are you agree with the town wells. You've actually had multiple, and by the way, some of your responses, including I believe in the paperwork, you'll have to look into it. It's okay to hit the ground running. You gotta hit the ground running in the right direction.
Yeah, and now, we weren't intending a 2-minute rebuttal to your rebuttal, so now.
Oh, I thought that was a question.
No, it wasn't a question.
Oh, you know what, then I'm sorry, I didn't realize.
But it was really, Ryan, do you want to take a 30-second, and then we'll go back to regular order?
Yeah, I mean, look, the only thing I'll say is my approach to water is a multi-pronged approach. It's, I just feel like if the wells don't pan out for whatever reason, I want to have a plan B. I think it's important to present the residents of Portland with options, and that way, if some unforeseen circumstance should arise, we will be ready. And I'm also glad that you're in favor of the track behind the scenes, but I've been looking at the Board of Selectmen minutes, and that was not mentioned in any Board of Selectmen minutes. So, but I'm glad that you were working on it, so it's important.
All right, so I think the next question is for Ryan, am I correct on that?
Yeah.
And then we have right here.
Hi, Ms. Malicki. So we currently have representation, obviously, from the state for public health, and we have district representation. Do you have any plans or any thoughts about representation townwide for public health or any ideas regarding public health initiatives?
Well, that's a great question. And if anything,
Repeat the question.
the question is on public health, and particularly we have a district-wide health office, but we don't have a Portland health office. And if anything we've seen from the past year, or 2 years now with COVID, is how important public health and the role of a public health office is. And so I do think that there's something to be said for looking about maybe taking something back. I know there have been towns that have left the Chatham Health District and decided to go their own way. I'm not entirely positive if that's the plan, if that's the best plan for Portland. I will say that public health is absolutely a top priority, and we need to address it. We need to make sure that Chatham Health is reaching the needs of Portland's residents. And if they're not, then we need to figure out what can be done to fix that. Are we gonna change it from within? Are we gonna improve Chatham Health? Or would we take things back in Portland on our own? That's something that I would not say no to, but as you know, I'm sure there's an added cost to that. So we would have to look at that added cost and whether or not the benefits outweigh the cost. But I will give Chatham Health credit for getting us through the worst of the pandemic. I know it was not an easy job for them at all. And I think we're all here today outside, but together. And it's great to see. So I would give thanks to Chatham Health and really health districts and doctors and nurses and healthcare providers and professionals throughout the country and the world for all that they've done. So, does that answer your question?
No, it doesn't.
No.
No, the question was more, Chatham Health is doing a fabulous job. So my question is, do you have any plans townwide aside from public health, it's being done district-wide and statewide, are there any plans or do you have any ideas for initiatives to provide a public health voice for residents?
At this point, it's something that I can consider. I had not, like you said, Chatham Health does an excellent job. And so at this point, I would say that we're going to stay with Chatham Health and let them continue to do their job.
Yeah, no, I'll say that when I take a look at the pandemic and I remember what we came through, right? We were fortunate. Our Chatham Health officials did a great job working with the town administration, right on the spot, aggressively went after helping folks get vaccinated. I think from a public health perspective, we're being well served right now. Events that we run, we have interaction with Chatham Health. They do a great job in terms of getting out, working with us to make sure that we provide services to the public safely. I think that the focus of your question is really how do we tie some of that together at a more local level. And I look at the fact that I look at all of the things we've done from a health perspective. You look at the parks that we've built, the airline trail, this park, which is something I'm very proud of, the team that I work with that's built this. You look at the Route 17 park, which I am very proud of and will defend anytime on that issue, because again, the amount of folks that use that park. We have a lot of these services that we've built in our town that are great places for our folks to recreate, to congregate, basically to get healthy, to be outside, and to basically get to come together as community. And I think one element that we can add to that is a health committee. We've talked a little bit about that, but how can we tie that together where we can have some programming that's going to bring people together in a coordinated way that ties all of that elements together, that can talk, basically look across age segments, that can look at different demographics in town, and can also be integrated as we look at different things with Chatham Health if we need to, etc., to all work together and just try to make the entire community healthier, to provide a better space and living for all our residents.
I think that's the Jim question in the back here. Yeah.
Yeah, so Route 66, right on the corner, Main Street, is that project that's been stalemate for many, many years. As well as Route 66 does not have water and sewer from the shopping plaza all the way to East Hampton. We just recently lost our veterinarian in town because there's no sewer. There was a big controversy about that, and that person is moving to Cobalt. So we're losing a veterinarian. There's no new businesses coming to town. We build all these beautiful parks, beautiful job, but who's going to pay for it? No new businesses have come to town for years. I've been in business 30 years on Route 66, and I haven't seen development at all. We put a dairy cleanup. That's about it. No development at all. All this land and all this property, hundreds of thousands of people travel that road every month, but there's nothing here. So what would you do about developing that corner, making sure that that development goes through before we have more fires there, before we have more people, vagrants living there, and how can you develop Route 66 better?
Okay, broad question for only 2 minutes. I'm going to give it a shot, but it has to do with development at, I think, Brainerd Place and how we can get that moving and how we can try to drive facilities further out on Route 66. So, first of all, Brainerd Place, and I think a very good update. The Board of Selectmen approved basically an update to the contract. Then the idea being is that there are now some metrics that have been put into there. There's some milestones. For example, one of the requirements is going to be the bond payment by the end of this year. That's a $1.6 million bond that would have to get paid. There's other metrics in terms of permitting and when things have to get put in place. We had a lot of very good conversations about required demo and getting the demolition started. And I know that right now they're looking at basically ways to secure the site, because as selectmen, multiple of us, I know I did, Selectman Zampano, well, we've been pushing in terms of securing the site because of that issue. It is something that I think that the fire especially brought into view. It was already working in terms of looking at an extension, but what the fire brought into view and really gave us some, it really became a driver and a mechanism to be able to say, look, we need to get this done. We can't have an unprotected site that could be a risk for our fire, for our police. It needs to get done. It's always tough when you're dealing with that private development because they tend to move at their own pace, but I think that the response has been very good in terms of keeping that moving. Regarding Route 66, I look at this and things in terms of 1 year, 1 year, 2 year, then looking at 3 to 5, and then 5 to 10. Job one for water, in my view, is we've got to get the cost of water down. Right? If we try to push water out with 66 right now, we'd be telling people they have to pay for an expensive service, and then we're going to try to push it. It would also, at this point, put liens on people's property, because you'd have an assessment that people would be charged based on their amount of frontage. I think that could be a burden. It can actually have a negative impact, because as people go to use capital or refinance their properties to use capital to expand businesses, that would become a liability. So I think that's something we need to look at in the out years. As we move forward, it's going to be part of the plan. But I think we've got to do this in stages. And job one is getting the cost of water down.
Thanks, Jim, and thank you, Wayne, for your question. Honestly, and this is where we'll respectfully disagree, I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think we can get water out to 66, and we can get the cost of water down. This is why I want to leave on the table still working with larger players, because larger players would be the way that we have the deep pockets. Now, if we go with the wells, which we very well might do, we're not going to have that money in place. Now, it's a shame to lose this business, Portland Vet, as town clerk. I call them so often for probably most of your dog licenses over here, and they're a wonderful Portland business. I can say that if I was First Selectman, I would be doing everything in my power to get that business to stay, and in addition to bring in new business. And there's a reason when you drive around town, you see my lawn signs in front of more businesses around town. It's because the business owners in this town know that I am going to be good for business. I'm going to be good for economic development. It's what this town desperately needs. And I've been saying for a while, we have some wonderful new parks, and this park included, and I really do thank you for all your work on this. But it's time that we now turn our attention to lowering our water rates and economic development. It's something that I am dedicated to do. and that's really gonna be where my priority as First Selectman is. Because the more economic development that we can get in, the more we can take the property tax burden off of our residential property owners. And when I'm knocking on doors, that's what people care about. I've been telling people about Brainerd Place since I first ran for office 10 years ago. And when I knocked on doors in 2011, everybody wanted to know about Brainerd Place. And now I'm knocking on doors in 2021 and people still want to know about Brainerd Place. And enough is enough. You know, we can't wait 2 weeks before an election to have a deal. I mean, to me, it seems silly, but.
All right. Sorry, guys. Careful with that mic in the end there. Question for Ryan, I believe, is next. Question for Ryan, anybody? Holy cow.
I got a question.
We'll let Dave this time, thank you.
You know, you guys both touched on it earlier, and I'm on the Board of Education, so it's near and dear to me, but the track issue has been going on for many, many years, and the current Democratic majority has had no plan. Now all of a sudden it's become an issue, they want to talk about it, but I know, Ryan, I want to hear what your plan is to fix the track, and quickly, because it is going to be it's not usable right now, but it's going to be not usable permanently pretty quickly.
Thank you, Dave. So again, you know, like I've just been saying, we have some wonderful new parks in town. We've got some great stuff, but we also need to take care of the things that we already have. And I think as a town, we have a bad habit of looking at the shiny new object while the old object falls apart on us. And that's just not good enough for me. I want to make sure that we are taking care of those things, because right now, I mean, imagine you're a high school student and you can't use the track at the high school because your leaders let it fail. And it's not, and what gets me about the track is it's a larger issue, because this is a planned expense. We knew it was coming and we did nothing for years. So to me, it just speaks as, it speaks at a larger issue of making sure that we take care of what we have. Now, as far as getting the track fixed, I have spoken to Carl Johnson about this. He has a plan. I've spoken with Tom Robinson, our finance director, already. His suggestion, which he told me would have been to budget part of this money, because it's $500,000. We have to come up. We do have to find that money. So we have to get that money. But I'm not going to wait on that. I'm not going to wait, because all we've been doing is waiting on our state legislatures. And honestly, that's the name, like in my time in Portland government, the name of the game is waiting. And I don't like to wait. I like to roll up my sleeves and get to work and get the job done. So whatever it takes to fix that track, I'm going to do it, because it's a promise to the children of this town and all the residents who use it. It's used by quite a lot of people, and right now we can't use it. So yeah, we're going to get that fixed. Thank you.
So thanks. I actually appreciate that question, and I appreciate, because I know you've been involved in this issue for a while. I'm going to start with a quick history lesson, so everybody can take a look at March 27th, 2018, and April 4th, 2018, and take a look at the Board of Selectmen meetings. Back then, we knew that we had an issue with the track. From my time on the Board of Ed, I had already been working with Carl Johnson about a solution. I proposed a solution to extend the life of the track. I argued for it, and it was rejected by, at the time, the Board of Education, the superintendent and the current board chair were not in favor of it. And the gentleman who just asked this question was in the front row. He also was not in favor of it. It involved splitting some allocated monies from the window project so that we could get a process done on the track to extend the life. What we were told at the time is if we did not do this process, which effectively amounted to resealing the track, what every one of us has to do on our driveways so that we don't lose them within a few years, we were told that if we resealed it, we would get 6 to 8 years out of the track. If we didn't do the process, we would get half that. We got half that. Now, regarding fixing this track and what we need to do, when we came out of the winter and it was evidence that a lot of damage had been taken, the first thing I know I did, and the first thing the board did, and I think others did, was reach out to our state legislators and ask for assistance. Try to bring some revenue home. We've been very successful doing that with grants, and I think it's important that we always do that. But we're not just waiting for that. There's a plan B. I know that we just got the Board of Education, and I congratulated them at the October 20th meeting, you can watch that as well, on bringing home a $170,000 grant to get some reimbursement for the Chromebooks we had provided. That, along with looking at surpluses that are anticipated in the Board of Education and on the Board of Selectmen, should provide a good funding mechanism for us to actually get the track done and be able to engage with the contractor to do the work this summer. That's the goal, without charging anybody additional taxes.
Okay, the next question is for candidate Tripp. Anybody, you already asked the question, like, you're fine, but if nobody else has one, nobody else? Chris, what?
I did. Jim, I know you talk about water and cost of water going down, and I think I saw somewhere the cost is all we're talking about. It's like $800,000 what we're paying now to half of it, maybe just the cost of the water. Can you talk about the cost of the infrastructure for how much it's going to cost us as taxpayers, to get the wells online, get the treatment part online, get the lines running out to use that as a resource? Thank you.
Yeah, good question, Chris, and thank you for that. And this has to do with what about the additional costs? That's something that is actually, I make sure I include in every write-up, because I want to make sure that residents know exactly what we're signing up for. Here's what it amounts to. If you take a look at, we can generate 40% of our water from the town well. That costs us about $100,000. Right now, the other 60% comes from MDC. That costs $857,000. That number is 83% higher than it was in 2015. It's gone up 45% in the last 4 years. Okay, if we can make that 60% by finding town wells look like the 40%, now you're looking at it on a volume basis of an annual cost of between $250,000 and $300,000 for your water. There are costs because you have to have the personnel, sanitation, electricity, do the repairs on the well. Right, you need to do all that. The other cost that I talk about is more variable. It's one we don't yet know. It depends on where we locate a good source of water. That's the cost of implementing the infrastructure associated with putting it into play, with tying it into the system. The key there is that we don't know if that's going to be $2 million or if it's going to be $10 million. When you look at it, even if it's on the higher end, you might be looking at a $350,000 rural water loan to basically pay that off. Even in that case, you'd be looking at $600,000 a year to generate your water between the cost of operating the wells and the infrastructure versus what you would have if you were continued to operate on MDC. MDC is going up about 10% a year. The models that we have built in place, when you take a look at them, right now we're $857,000 a year for MDC. Those could be at $1.1 million by the end of our contract. So we do need to account for all the costs, the operating costs of the well, looking at manpower, and looking at how we're going to build the infrastructure, but that's what we've tried to do. In any event that we calculate, taking a look at it and moving to our own Portland-owned source of water gives us control, stability, and a much better cost model to move forward, and will free up resources to do some of the infrastructure work we all need to do without increasing the cost of Portland water to our ratepayers.
So Jim and I are in agreement on this. I mean, and what you're getting at is there are so many variables in finding our own water source, and we can do it, and it needs to be looked at. But at the same time, this gets back to my point earlier, where we need to have a backup plan in place, because one thing that it's been bothering me it's no secret that our rates with MDC have been increasing. However, a lot of that has to do with mandatory upgrades that MDC has been forced to put on by the state of Connecticut. And so by continuing to talk about MDC as this bad guy, now if the wells don't pan out, and what happens if we need to go back to working with MDC? And I'm afraid that by talking about them in this light, that we're souring a potential relationship with a company that, regardless of whether we get our own water source or if we don't get our own water source, we're still going to have that pipeline connected with MDC, and we're still going to have to use them for a backup plan. And so I want to still maintain a positive relationship with MDC, and I would like to reset that as First Selectman while we continue to look for our own wells. But there's so many variables that come into play when you look for your own water source that I just do not want the town of Portland to put all our eggs into one basket and then have it not pan out, and then us to have to come crawling back to MDC and say, oh, I'm sorry, we made a mistake. And so what I'm saying is, let's look at all the options on the table and be ready in case those variable costs that you speak of are even higher. Because at the end of the day, we don't know. That's what variable costs are. They're variable. We don't know what the costs are. So let's keep our options open right now and hope for better days, but plan for the worst. That's what I'd like to do, okay?
I think the next question is for Ryan. Anybody have a question? In the back here?
You keep saying, I guess a question asked by your values earlier. But every time I hear you talk, you say me. Are you running just to satisfy yourself? Or are you running for the people of Portland?
Thank you. So the question is whether or not I'm running for myself or the people of Portland. I've been proud to call Portland my home. These are everyone here, whether, like I said earlier, whether you vote for me or not, you are still, I consider my friends and neighbors. I am running, the only reason why I am running is to make a better life for the residents of Portland. This is where my heart is. This is where my passion is. Like I said, I've got my Eagle Scout and with Troop 2 in town volunteering. I've been a member with Jim, the Portland Lions Club. I'm a charter member of that. I've been a member of the Portland Exchange Club, the Knights of Columbus. I mean, I've been volunteering in town for quite a long time, serving the residents of Portland. I will continue to do so, whether or not I get elected First Selectman or not. My values are with this town and with helping the people of this town. So one of the things is with my degree in public administration, right now, I mean, my resume, I do have the qualifications, I believe, to be a town manager right now, which, would pay a lot better. I'm the only candidate to have my master's in public administration, but I don't want that. My heart is here. I'm running for Portland to make Portland a better town, more economical, more affordable for our residents, and more business friendly for our businesses, and also just a better place to live all around. So like I said earlier, I'm very proud of my values and what I run and what I'm running for and what I represent. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, I will address it this way. I moved to Portland 22 years ago, and I will tell you that very shortly I was embraced by this community. I was able to start volunteering in this community over 20 years ago. My experience here has been one, I raised a family here. My kids have gotten a great education here. The fact is that I love Portland. Portland has been terrific and for my family. I've gotten so much from this community, and I've been dedicated to giving back. For over 20 years, and I just ask people, take a look at my record. For over 20 years, I've been a volunteer, just trying to make Portland a better place. Whether it was clearing trees so we could see this river, this park is emblematic of everything I stand for. For over 20 years, I've been with this group. When we started, if you take a look at the nice thick woods over here that you can't see through, that's what this whole park looked like when we started. The whole point of my career has been to try to make Portland a better place for everybody to live, work, recreate, and raise a family. I've been involved, in my experience here in this park, I've been involved in the Route 17 park, I've been involved in a lot of other activities in town. I've given a lot of time on the Parks and Rec Commission, the Board of Education, and obviously on the Board of Selectmen. So I would say that I am 100% committed to the community. I've always felt it's about the community, it's about making the lives of the 9,300 people that live in Portland better. And as First Selectman, that's what I will wake up in the morning, going to work to do. And when I go back to bed at night, that's when I'm going to be thinking about how I can do better the next day.
Next question for Jim. Anybody? Jim?
So this is a question for each of you. So when November 2nd comes and passes, let's say your opponent's the winner. How do you feel you can best help them in their capacity as First Selectman?
I'll tell you this, I believe strongly that I will be successful on November 2nd, and I believe that I can hit the ground running and do a tremendous job for the residents of Portland. I will say that regardless of the outcome, as I've done for over 20 years, I'm going to work hard for the residents of Portland. One of the things I love about Portland is the volunteer community, the spirit that we can get involved, the work that we do, to kind of, again, to make Portland a better place to like I said, to live. It's just, that's what it's about. If Ryan is elected on November 2nd, all of that work that I've done, the volunteerism and the things that I believe in that have been core to what I do, I will continue to do that work. I will always be continuing to do that work. That's just who I am. I think one of the best compliments that I got paid on the campaign trail, we were actually working at the food bank on Monday, and somebody coming through, she shared with me, she said that she was supporting me in the election. And one of the reasons, she said, is that I've watched what you've done in the community for so long. She said, and I know that even if you weren't running for election, even when nobody's looking, you're always there working. You're always looking to fill a need. You're always looking to volunteer and look for new ways to support the residents of Portland. And she said, and I know that, you know, even after November 2nd, you will be. And that's just true. To me, that was something that kind of hit me where I live, because those are my values. My values are volunteerism and community. I've demonstrated that over a long time. None of that is going to change. I will always try to make Portland a better work to make Portland a better community, and I will work with anybody to do that.
Jim, thank you. That's a great question. And so for those of you who don't know, I am a registered Republican, and this is a blue town. When I served on the Board of Selectmen in the town of Portland, you know, I had to work across the aisle all the time. You can't pass anything alone. You have to work with everyone. And so, so for Jim here is, you know, we've worked together. I mean, aside from this campaign, we've worked very well together for many years. And we will continue to work well together. Specifically, to answer your question directly on what I'd like to work with Jim on, should I be successful, which, by the way, I do think that I will be successful. But you heard it here today. Jim's knowledge on water and sewer is great. I mean, he knows his stuff, and I don't want to lose that. So should I be successful, I'd like to make sure that we don't lose Jim's knowledge and dedication to this town, because he has done some great work. And like I said, November 2nd at 8 p.m., we are all going to have to go back to working together and to being friends again and to getting the job done for Portland. That is literally the only thing I care about, and I'm pretty sure it's the only thing that Jim cares about too. And it's interesting because I've been watching some politics in other towns, and I just want to say how lucky we are in Portland, because when you look at other towns, it's like everybody just hates the other candidate. And it's like a battle for who's worst. Whereas in Portland, I strongly believe that we have two very strong candidates who are both qualified, who will do a great job for the town. So I do feel like I'm more qualified, but that's a story for another day. But I will be working with Jim, and I will be working with anyone who is willing to work with me, and that's a promise.
We have time for another question. And this is for Ryan.
Got one in the back.
Hi. So Ryan, my question for you is, I have heard that some RTC members and some of your supporters don't support some of the equity work that has happened in town, and social justice causes, for example, the Juneteenth event and the Pride rally. And I know that Jim has stated that he supports these causes, and I know that you have been involved in the Social Justice Coalition in the past, and you have stated to me that you support our work. But my question is, if, you know, how do you feel about those causes going forward? And if your supporters, if any of your supporters give you pushback about that type of progress in towns and those events specifically, how will you handle that?
Thank you, Liz. That's a great question. And I will say that.
Can you restate it a little bit? Paraphrase it?
Sorry. So the question is on some of my supporters maybe not supporting the work of the Social Justice Coalition. And honestly, I have not seen that personally. I haven't heard that directly from any supporter. I believe in the important work of that, and I know that many, and probably all of you here do. I mean, this is an important issue, not just for the town of Portland, but nationally. I think that the work that the Social Justice Coalition, the Task Force on Solidarity, and all those commissions, they're doing important work for a reason. And should I come into someone who does not feel the same way, I have no problem in expressing the importance of that work. It's something that I've done, I will continue to do. But like I said earlier, I am blessed and fortunate to have a lot of supporters, and some may not have the same life experiences yet to be able to be as open-minded as some other people. And so, but that doesn't mean that we still can't reach out to them and bring them into the fold. And so I'm looking to represent everyone, and that's why I was at Juneteenth, and I was, at the Pride rally, and I will continue to be. Whether or not I am running for anything, these are important causes in our community, and they deserve our respect, and that's something that I have always shown, and I will always continue to show. But I can't change hearts and minds without, I'm doing the best I can to lead by example. That's something that I've always done and I always will. So I want people to look at me and say, hey, Ryan's at this event. Well, maybe if he believes it, if Liz believes it, if Jim believes it, maybe there's something to it. And that's all, as a leader we can do, is we can try to lead by example and bring people with us. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question, and the fact is that I think it's very important when we look at the Solidarity Task Force, which we've actually officially codified now as a committee. When we look at the equity and inclusion work that's going on with the schools and the Social Justice Coalition work, these have been very important discussions in our community. Especially, I think they were long overdue, and I think that it's important that our community is having them now. It's something that I fully support. I've written about this, and we've talked about the fact that with Juneteenth, with Pride, I'm glad we're going to be continuing to do those events. Look forward to those annual events. I will be at those events. I've had the opportunity to work and see the really good discussions that have occurred. As a liaison, it was one of the things as a Board of Selectmen, I've had the opportunity to be a liaison to the Solidarity, and the good discussion work, the survey work that was done, that helped uncover and talk, basically raise the conversation about some of the issues that allow us to actually focus and target on them. I'll go back to this though, and this is an important part of it, and it has to do with being, leadership, is that how we maintain a civil discourse, and how we continue to focus. And as a leader, and I talked about this when a question came up the other night, I have taken exception, and you're aware of this, I've taken exception to, for example, right on Middlesex Avenue, an F Biden sign and an F the people that voted for him. That's the majority of us. And underneath that sign, you have a Ryan Curley sign. You're aware of it. It's something that as a leader, I know it's hard to want to lose that vote, or it's hard to want to upset a voter base, and I get that challenge, believe me. At the same time, we need to stand up for that high level of discourse. As a leader, we need to set that tone, and a leader, we need to not codify that kind of conversation. We need to stand up to it and set that proper tone. That's how we move the discussion forward.
next question is for Jim. We have, where are you, right, nobody else? There you go.
Jim, when you become our first selectman, how do you help the Portland residents for our safety in town on Main Street and 66? We have a speedway on 66. The town's been dealing with it over the years. You're a part of the Board of Selectmen. How do you plan to help us get any effort and control on the speed and safety of Main Street and 66, especially including our local police department? Because right now, I know firsthand, my feeling, they told us they're not on board. They do not have a traffic division. I have recently called.
I didn't hear that last part. No, I want to hear that.
At the previous meeting that Sue set up a couple of years ago, our chief of police said that the department doesn't have a traffic division. The department doesn't have time for it, and they're not going to do it. And I recently called on a traffic safety thing 2 weeks ago. It took 45 minutes for a local policeman to show up. Very rude to me, very unfriendly. Do you expect to change that image in town with our enforcement of our safety and our cooperation between our local police department?
Yeah, thank you, Norm. This has to do with traffic and speeding, which is something I think that has gotten worse, especially. I think it's gotten worse in the last year and a half. Part of this is that if we go back a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, there was a focus on this, and we would meet in the Wagner Room periodically. We were basically bringing folks together. It was our police officers that would show up. It would also concern citizens, and we had a traffic group, and they would talk about this. And it was kind of a multi-pronged approach. We need to take a look at, one, have the conversation, right? We have to continue to raise it as an issue. We have to make sure that we're putting out, I think, and the data shows that they're helpful, and we've deployed some of those signs that show people what speeds they're going and actually try to drive them down to raise that awareness. But I think we, as a community, are gonna have to look at our police force. We have to always be looking at staffing levels and seeing what we have from time, from a time perspective. There are a lot of issues that are going on in our community right now. We've all heard about some of the break-ins and the things that have gone on in Glastonbury and around various communities. We know that there are resources that are being tied up on that front. We're going to really have to look as a community as what are we going to do with our police force going forward, the conversations we're going to have. I do know that, and this is not a secret, that Captain Millardo has announced that he's going to be retiring in April. I think that sometimes when you have a shift in a retirement, there's going to be new leadership within the department that is going to step forward. I think that we're going to have these conversations about how we address traffic and speeding. They're going to go around staffing levels. We need to look at it. I think our offices right now I know our offices are doing an awful lot of work with very limited resources, and I think we're going to have a focus on this issue, raise community awareness, and we are going to have to take a look at our police force and what we need to do going forward, either from staffing or for other changes to try to get more attention on this issue.
Thanks, Norm. I'm going to get to your question, but all right, there we go. But before I do, I do think it's important that I address that lawn sign that you were referring to. Like I was saying earlier, I am blessed with a wide range of support. That sign that is up at that house is not something that I personally agree with at all. It's not something that represents me, and I don't agree with it flat out. I think it's not something that I would like to be up. However, I am also in favor of the First Amendment, and I believe that we have that for a reason in this country, and it is important that we do have the First Amendment. Now, like I said earlier, I have over 350 lawn signs up throughout Portland, And I can promise you that I might not have the same thoughts and agreements with a lot of the people who have signs up. But at the end of the day, everyone wants one thing, and they want Portland to come together and to improve. And that's why I'm running. Now, as far as speeding on Main Street goes, this is, again, it's not a new issue. This has been going on for when I was on the Board of Selectmen, this came up. I was in favor then, it's in the minutes of putting, as Jim talked about, those radar detectors out. We had spoken about putting one by Gildersleeve back when I was on the board that never came to fruition, but that was something that I wanted to do because speeding is a problem and we have to crack down on it. I also want to give props to our police department. We are blessed with a wonderful police department in this town, and they do a phenomenal job. This would be something that I would like to work with Captain Millardo as long as he is with us, and the entire police force to address the speeding and to because I don't think it takes much. Oh, you know, the thing with the radar detectors is what it tells the community is it tells the drivers that this is a community that cares about their residents and that cares about speed. So even like the one on High Street, I mean, it is effective. We know it's effective because it takes measurements. Thank you.
Okay, we're coming to the end of our hour. Actually, we've exceeded it by a half. We're going to do a question for Ryan, and then there'll be Ryan will answer response by Jim, and then there will be closing discussion. We'll start, I believe, with Jim went first, and we'll have Jim go, and then Ryan will finish with the closing. All right, so question here, right here. Yes.
This is to both of you. So first and foremost, are you proud of the ticket that you are running on, and do you feel like the people that are surrounding you also represent Portland?
Can you paraphrase the question?
Yeah, so am I proud of the ticket that I'm on, and if the ticket that I'm on represents Portland? Well, to be honest, I'm going to say flat out, I am proud of both our slates of candidates. I think that we have, like I said earlier, Portland is a winner in this election. We have some great qualified people in this race, and I am proud to run alongside my team and my opposition because like I said, come November 2nd, this is all over, and we're going to have to work together. And I don't care what party you are. I don't care if you're green, libertarian, Democrat, Republican, whatever. As long as we work together to make Portland a better place to live. And so I do think that the slate of candidates, to answer your question, represents a wide variety of Portland. You know, there was talk. You know, I have heard the criticism that we don't have as many females that I would like. You know, and I wish our candidate, our slate was more diverse. I really do. I think it's important for leadership to and the town as a whole. Our employees should represent and should be a reflection on our residents, on who they represent. So that is important to me. I know it's important to Jim, and I am proud of everybody that's running. And I think, and I know for a fact that every single person on my ticket has only the best intentions for Portland in mind. And I have no doubt that it's not the same. That is the same on the Democratic side. So we're going to have to work together, and I can't wait to roll up my sleeves and get the job done. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, I am very proud of the ticket that I'm running with. The individuals that put their name forward. First of all, I applaud anybody who puts their name in the arena because it's not easy. Right? I don't care which side you run on. It's not easy to put your name out there. There's always folks that will try to take shots at you, fair or otherwise. However, what I will say is when I talk about our ticket, I love the fact we have diversity of thought. We have a balanced ticket with gender. We have a balanced ticket with race. We have a ticket that truly represents Portland. And most importantly, represents the different perspectives of Portland residents. When we're sitting in the room and we're trying to make decisions, I've always enjoyed, and right now, the last 2 years as a member of the Board of Selectmen, we'll sit there and we'll talk about issues and you come to consensus. And the value to Portland voters is having a diversity of opinion, a diversity of thinking, a diversity of ideas, so that you can vet them all and come to the best conclusion for the best result for the residents of Portland. When I look at the ticket and the folks that I'm running with, we're talking about folks that have decades of experience collectively, and just again a diversity of thought. So I couldn't be prouder. I'm looking forward to our team being successful on November 2nd, and I am looking forward to getting to work again for Portland and to keep moving Portland forward. So, thank you.
All right, so we're gonna have, unless the candidates want to go over more questions, we were gonna move on to summation.
Thank you. So, at the end of the day, we're voting for a leader for our town. And I appreciate, we've talked about a lot, I've heard leadership mentioned, we've talked a lot about where you stand regarding different issues. How would each of you describe your leadership style?
Yeah. So when I look at, as a leader, sorry. The question was describe leadership style. How each of us would describe our leadership style. I would say that my goal, and again, having led many organizations and groups for a long time, it's about consensus building. It's about gathering a diversity of opinions and ideas and being able to bring people together. You know, when we're working around, I can tell you that when you're working with a lot of people and a lot of different ideas, I think that it's easy for folks to get siloed into what they consider, what their opinion is, or what their idea. And sometimes what you need to do is create an amalgam of those. That's something that I've always striven to do as a leader in the room. Try to bring different perspectives together so we can get to a common goal that everybody can buy into and work hard to achieve. Okay? I think that as a leader, I lead by example. I would not, and I all due respect, that sign, I would drive there in my car and I would pick that sign up. By the way, I'd also pick up the one that's on Route 17. But when I look at this from how I would manage a team, which is another component, is that I look at things as a leader. I want to remove roadblocks. I want to understand what people's jobs are, right? You remove the roadblocks. You remove the obstacles to their success. Then you work very hard to basically get a common set of goals that people will sign up to, and then you hold people accountable to them. And so it's kind of like it's all of that, right? It's setting the right example, setting the right tone, making sure you give people what they need to be successful, holding them accountable for being accessible, and always try to create an environment where everyone's working to a common goal. Those are the different elements that I think I've shown over 20 plus years working in the community.
Thank you. So I agree with a lot of what Jim just said. I mean, leadership is leading by example, but it's also bringing people together. And that's something that I have been doing for many years. I know many people here have come through the town clerk's office at one point or another, and they've seen my office and how it's run. I've been very fortunate to have been able to run a department in town for the past 6 years. And I'm proud of the work. You know, I do have staff, and there's a lot of moving parts that go into you know, a municipal election or just management in general. My experience has always been to build upon people's strengths, and so find out what people are good at, and then just encourage them to keep doing what they're doing. I mean, the town clerk's office is a very, very well-oiled machine right now, and I'm very proud of that. I mean, I did just go to and this is part of what I went to grad school for, was to learn different styles of leadership, and we did a lot of reading and comprehension on what makes a good leader. And really, the best thing that I can say is listening and to understanding one another. Because when you know where someone else is coming from, then you're able, and you can put yourself in that position, well, you can reach them better. And so that's all that I've been trying to do is, and I see it, when I knock on doors, and I talk with people, and they explain, and I've heard so many different points of view, and at the end of the day, I find the commonality, what we have in common, and then I look to build on that. And that's something that I will always continue to do. I feel like this is the right time and the right moment for some new leadership in Portland that brings everyone together, and at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
Okay, we're going to have closing, starting with Jim and then closing with Brian.
So I'm just going to say,
well, we have agreed on an hour, and we're already over the hour.
Can the community request to extend that?
Is that your question?
I can't hear you.
Whatever you guys want.
All right, then we'll take another question. We're on questions for Brian.
I think so.
Right here, yes?
The meeting is for us.
You and the people on, Brian, the people on your ticket have made quite an issue of the fact that you've lived here all your life, and that is an extra qualification for a candidate for public office. And there are many, many people now who live in Portland who weren't born here. And this is the first time, it's not the first time that we heard this, and that the idea that people who live here all their lives have a special qualification to serve in public office and do other things. And I would like to know why that is the case, and why those of us who have moved here by choice and stay here by choice are less qualified to participate in Portland than you are.
Okay. So the question is whether or not people who grew up in this town or from Portland are more qualified than someone who moved to Portland. And that's not the case. I don't believe that's the case. But I am proud of everyone who's come to this town, who's chosen to make Portland their home. I mean, I just feel like I was blessed because I did grow up here. And when I say that I'm from Portland, all that means is, to me, is that I've spent my lifetime building relationships with people. That's all. It's not, I don't see myself as being more qualified than Jim just because I'm originally from town. It's just that I've been making friends in this town since literally preschool. And so I can look, when I drive around town, I see people that I've known literally my whole life. And so, and they know me, they know the type of person I am, and I know them. And so, does that mean that I would be a better leader? No, but does it mean that I have a good feel for the town as a town? I do think that it helps me to know what the town is looking for. As a leader, I do think that is important. Now, that's not to say that Jim doesn't know what the town is looking for either, but it just gives me an extra or a perspective to draw on. That's all. So I never said that I'm more qualified because I'm from Portland. No, I mean, and I wouldn't say that, but yeah, no.
Yeah, I found, especially a lot of the volunteer work I've done early in my career had to do around Portland and its history, and I think that as community members, respecting the history of where this of this town, our quarrying history, and basically all Portland has, I think that's the important component, right? It's respecting the community. I don't think that because someone's born here that that there's any special rights or should be. I know it gets brought up a lot. I don't I guess I don't really understand. It seems like that happens a lot. And I know it irks some folks. I know that the survey data that was done with the Solidarity Task Force, it was actually one of the things that basically rose to the level of that folks had concerns about, that folks are sometimes made to feel like outsiders because people always bring up the fact that they were born here. My view on this is that as a community, I look at level of engagement. I look at respect to the community and basically, a general understanding. I think that, folks that were born here will certainly know folks for a long time. I also think that folks that have been involved in the community and have engaged in various facets of the community are going to have that same level of understanding, right? They're going to be able to develop that same affection. I think folks that have chosen to live here, as I did 22 years ago, again, can develop that same level of affection. I don't think it really should matter from a leadership perspective. I know for me, it's about the level of engagement. I've been involved in so many different aspects of the community, from volunteerism to government, different components, that I feel I got a solid understanding of the community, and I think that's the most important component as I'm running for office. I have my finger on the pulse. I do understand what the needs of the community are, and I've shown over a long period of time that I'm dedicated to work as hard as I can to improve those and to make life better in Portland.
Take another question over here.
So I think that we can all agree that everyone here is probably going to turn up on Tuesday to vote. If you're coming out in the rain, you're probably going to be voting. I work the polls, so I'm sure I'll see you all there. Hi. My question is, why should everyone here go back and encourage people who might not turn out on Tuesday to vote? And also, why should they ask people to turn out to vote for you?
I'd say that,
Could you paraphrase the question?
Yeah.
Sure. I guess the question was, why should people turn out to vote, and why should they turn out to vote for me? The first part, I think in our democracy, one of the reasons that I know we've worked very hard to talk about issues, positions, to make sure that we very thoroughly described what we would do if elected, and what I would do if I'm elected. Is I think it's very important in our democracy to communicate in an honest way what your plans are, what your ideas are, what your thoughts are. People understand what they're getting if they elect you. I think the second part of that contract is for people to do the work to actually come out and to take the time to learn it, right? And then to vote. And I think that our system works best when we hear from the broadest segment of residents. I think it's not good for our system to have 20% of the people making a decision. I'd love to see a turnout of 60%, 70%, which would be huge for municipal, right? But I think that that's when we make our best decisions, when we speak in one voice as a community. It's one of the reasons that we held a referendum for the park when we did. We held it in a presidential year so that you wouldn't have a big decision made by a small fraction of the community. It was made by 90%, or I think it was 89 in that election. But I think that's important. Regarding voting for me, I think that since I've announced, I've actually worked very hard to communicate my vision, what I would work on, and the issues that I'm targeting as I'm knocking on doors, they are the issues that are on people's minds. I know from the work I've done over the last several years how critical getting water under control is, not for our businesses and for our residents. It's just important from an economic development perspective. Redevelopment of this riverfront is going to be key. I'm committed to redeveloping this riverfront in a way that's going to maximize its value for Portland residents, that's going to drive further economic development. And education, I served on the Board of Education. Education to me is critical in this town. We're lucky to have a wonderful school system. And I know as First Selectman, I will do everything I can to partner with the Board of Education to keep it that way.
So thank you, Christy. Talking to a town clerk about voter turnout is something near and dear to my heart. Well, we were blessed to get a 89.6% turnout in the 2020 presidential election. And so I did do the research as far as municipal races go, and if we, like Jim said, if we can hit 60%, that would be great. But honestly, I want to do better. I want every single voter in town to turn up on Tuesday. It's why I've been knocking on so many doors. It's why I've been making so many phone calls. And I don't just knock on Republican doors or unaffiliated voters. I literally knock on every single door. I mean, when I didn't, last weekend, I left my voter list at home, and I just knocked. I didn't care who was going to open the door, because it doesn't matter. The issues that I am talking about resonate with everyone in town. They impact all of our lives, and they're all important for us. And that's why I'm up here, sitting up here with Jim right now, is because I truly believe in the issues that I'm running on. I know we need economic development in this town. I know we need to lower our water and sewer rates. And I know we need to bring in, improve our infrastructure. And I'll say it again, we gotta fix that track at the high school. These are all things that I've been hearing about daily, every day. And I do get a lot of emails from people that look at my qualifications, and they might look at Jim's qualifications, and I'll get questions, I'm sure you do too. Well, what separates us? You know, because we both do bring some great qualifications to this, to this office. And so what I think that I bring different is that I bring a new set of ideas, a new perspective. It's what I did in the clerk's office. When I started there, we were still issuing marriage licenses on a typewriter. We've come a long way, and we're going to come a long way in the town of Portland, I promise.
We have one last question, and then we're going to go to summation. Yep.
Do you view the
Could you
lack,
speak up?
do you view the lack of diversity when it comes to like teachers and administration within the school system as a problem? And if you do, how do you plan to combat that as selectmen?
So that's a great question, PJ. The question is, do I view the lack of diversity, particularly with teachers in our classrooms, as a problem? I will say I do, and it's something that I actually wrote a paper on in grad school not too long ago, specifically about human resources in the town of Portland. And it's something I spoke about earlier, is that as a community, you want the leaders and those in charge and teaching our kids or working in town to be a reflection of the community. And our community does have color in it. It's not just one all white. And so unfortunately, right now we can improve, and I do want to improve. And so as a first selectman, just so you know, my priority will be with the town, because obviously as first selectman there is a separation between the Board of Education and the town. I mean, at the end of the day, that's why our Board of Education is so important. That's why we have a superintendent, is to increase diversity. It's something that I would like to encourage. I would like to be a partner with Charles to see how we can get more diversity in our classrooms. But something that I can do is get a workforce that's more diverse. And so I can do that at the municipal level. And one of the things that I would do is and I learned this when when it came time to hire a new assistant town clerk a couple years ago. And our hiring practices in the town, we were putting ads in the River East, and that was basically how we found employment. I would like to expand on that and make sure that our job postings get out to as wide of a pool as possible, so that we can get that diversity that you're speaking of, and that we can have a government that's a reflection of the community it serves. So thank you.
So I look at the schools, and the fact is this is an area that we do need to improve on, and I think that that's one of the keys of why we're having all these conversations, why having the diversity, the social justice coalition, why having the diversity and inclusion work that's going on in the school system is so important, because that's where those conversations, I think, really start, and they really connect with the Board of Education and with the school administration, which is going to help drive that. I think you always hear, the concern that if you target a particular demographic to add it that you don't want to hurt in terms of how good of a candidate you're going to get. The key is casting a wide net. I think we can get good candidates across the board as we try to diversify our town workforce, as we try to diversify our police force, as we try to get additional diversity within our schools. And the key is really casting that wide net and just continuing to make that something that we all have a focus, we all understand is something that's actually going to improve the quality of our education, that's going to improve the quality of the town services that we have. So I do think it's something we, as a town, as a community, we need to focus on, specifically within the schools. It's absolutely, there is a bit of a separation from the town to the Board of Education, but certainly in terms of setting the tone at the top of the town and just partnering with the Board of Education and continuing to support the diversity efforts that are going on at multiple levels in our community, that's going to help, and that needs to help improve that going forward.
Why don't we start with closing summary, Jim, for yourself, and then we'll go to Ryan.
You mess it up from there.
So we've had a chance to talk now for, I think this has been a great discussion, just under an hour and a half. So first thing I want to say is thank you to everybody for coming out and with all the questions. It's great to have a crowd that comes out like this many people standing here in the rain outside asking questions. So thank you very much for that. I'm asking for your vote on November 2nd. And I'm asking for your vote because the work that I've done over the last 20 years, the lessons that I've learned, the relationships that I've built, the expertise that I've gained on a wide range of issues regarding the town, both as a volunteer and as a town official in varying capacities, is something that I want to put to work to continue to improve the quality of living, the quality of our education, and the quality of just basically how we work, live, and play in the town of Portland. It's something I've been passionate about. It is something that, as a volunteer, I've always kind of stepped in different roles. And to me, this is the next step. I feel prepared to take on this role. I've had a good opportunity to work closely with Susan Bransfield as both a partner and at a government level over the last 18 years. This is something that the bottom line is that I love the town of Portland. I want to make the town of Portland a better place for all of us to live, and I want to put the expertise in my education to work doing just that. I promise that, again, every day I will wake up, how can I make the town of Portland a little bit better? And when I go to bed at night, I'm going to figure out how I can do better the next day. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you guys for coming as well. It is great to see everyone come out in the rain. When I suggested this date, I promise I did not know it was going to rain. I envisioned a bright sunny day. So thank you all for coming out in spite of the weather. I am running for First Selectman to improve the town of Portland, and it's as simple as that. And it's because, and I hear it every time I knock on a door in town, and I've been hearing it often. It's, we've been fortunate to have some great leadership under Susan Bransfield for 18 years, and people are ready for a change, though. They're ready. They don't want to wait for these projects that have been stagnant for so long to just continue to move it at a snail's pace. They want someone to come in day one, take charge, and get going, get to work, bring in business, improve our infrastructure, solve the water and sewer issues on day one. There's no time. There's no time to wait. I mean, like Brainerd Place, it's been going on for 10 years. It's been going on since 2008, I think was the first time the River East mentioned Brainerd Place or Elmcrest. And so, I think that we're ready for a change in this town. I have the background, I have the experience, I have 10 years of elected experience in this town. I am very proud of my record as both a selectman and as your town clerk. And and having my master's degree in public administration has prepared me for this job, and I am ready day one, I promise you. Let's get to work on behalf of the town, and let's move Portland forward together. Thank you.